Remember the Calgary Drillers? Crush? Well, in this episode, we'll take a look at two more basketball teams, the more recent basketball teams that represented the city of Calgary here. However, both teams had very brief histories here that I think this will definitely be a little bit of a shorter episode here. I'll continue on my Remember the Calgary Series. This is episode 6. We'll talk about the Drillers and Crush here, looking back at Calgary sports teams in the past here. As a Calgary sports fan here, that I mostly do on my YouTube channel. If that all sounds like you'd be interested to watch and follow along, so make sure you hit like, subscribe. But I definitely have many sources of inspiration to do this Remember the Calgary series, especially let's say the Corral series or that Chris Wilson story, and of course See a Dead Clothing, which I have all the links in the description below there. That's where all inspired me to do this. So in the last episode number 5 here, I talked about the Calgary Tigers. Time that we had a hockey team and also a rugby team that evolved into a football team. So I talked about that in the last episode here. Got to go way back for 100 years to talk about the Calgary Tigers here. But when it comes to the Calgary Drillers and Crush here, both of these teams have existed within the last 10 to 15 years here, and especially with the second team, the Calgary Crush here, definitely have a lot more connections with being SAIT Trojans. As a SAIT alumni, will always be my collegiate team here, and eventually I'll make a personal vlog about that here. So let's talk about the Drillers first here, and I'm going to say they barely existed here, just like many other basketball teams that's been the case in Calgary here. As one of the links in the description below there, I'll share a story about when we got the Calgary Crush here, which was the last basketball team that Calgary's had here. We definitely have a tougher track record of having basketball teams in Calgary here. I've already talked about the Outlaws in episode 2 in the second half of that episode there. And then episode 4, I think the most famous, biggest Calgary basketball team we had was the Calgary 88s here, and just various reasons with leagues folding or lack of interest is the reason why teams eventually don't last here. Is I don't think there's as much of a culture for basketball in Calgary here. But the Calgary Drillers, they were only existed in the 2004-5 season here, and they actually played their home games at the Stampede Corral there, and that historical arena that is on its last legs right now because it's slated for demolition for the expansion of the BMO Center at Stampede Park here. But they were in the American Basketball Association, and this is a different American Basketball Association, not the one that competed with the National Basketball Association in the 60s and 70s here. But this mascot's DB, I was able at least to find that logo that I put in the thumbnail here and that word mark here. So I'm going to say that's the Calgary Drillers here. Other things that we can find here is that eventually another site that you find great logos at is sportslogos.net here, and it talks about on this forum here about the Drillers officially announced that the 2004-5 season, the season is suspended, all efforts would be dedicated to the 6-7 season there. Well, that never actually happened here. And keep in mind, this was also a time that Calgary was still fresh off of the 2004 Stanley Cup playoff run here. However, the NHL lockout happened here, so that definitely was another opportunity to maybe tap in some more sports here, but that didn't happen here. And then on the Wikipedia site here, for the 2004-5 ABA season here, which eventually the season ran from November 2004 until March 2005 here, the team that won the championship was the Arkansas Rim Rockers, and then the runner-up was the Mississippi Stingers here, and then the MVP went to Kareem Reed, the Arkansas Rim Rockers here. But when it comes to the regular season standings here, there were 3 divisions here. You had the red, white, and blue division, which has all in the basketball logo here. The Calgary Drillers were in the red division here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Their Calgary was 9th out of 12th here. However, they only played 15 games, including 5 home games at the Stampede Corral. So they were 5-10 here. So some teams definitely didn't get to finish their season here, because the Portland Rain was 4-8. There was the Fresno Heat Wave here. So there was, you can see the standings here on this website here, but I don't have anything about who played on the Drillers. But that's all we have for the Calgary Drillers. They only played 15 games. A very brief history of the Calgary Drillers here. But I'm going to say it's a decent logo that we've had with the basketball and the word mark here. So that is it for the Calgary Drillers here. So now we'll go into the Calgary Crush here, who also played in the American Basketball Association here. They played from 2012 to 2015 here. And they actually played all their home games at SAIT in the gymnasium there. So definitely, it was interesting how you got to wonder how you plan on building a market here. Let's say with the Drillers, they played at the Stampede Corral there, which seating capacity is about 6,500, and you can throw in another couple hundred here for standing room here. But going back when I mentioned to the Corral series here, they still only had, they had like 5,000 fans at the game there, all the times that I went there. But you definitely, if we pulled the plug on the Calgary Drillers here, there definitely wasn't much interest. I remember they existed, and I just didn't hear much interest on it. And then suddenly I heard that, they were gone. It's like they barely existed, and they were gone. But the Calgary Crush, definitely, I knew more about them because when they first came into Calgary here, and they played at the SAIT Gymnasium there. At the time, they're actually, I not only went to SAIT as a student here, but after when I graduated from SAIT, I worked at the games at the SAIT Trojan games as a minor official here, and that's where I heard that some of the staff that worked at the minor official games also worked at the Crush games here. But I said they were founded in 2011, then they folded in 2015 here, as ultimately they couldn't find more funding here, so they ceased operations, but they haven't come back here. They were owned by Salomon Rashadian, and then the head coach, I definitely familiar with him because he played for the SAIT Trojans and Eddie Richardson here. So when it talks about history here, the Crush were a second ABA team formed in Calgary following the Drillers that we briefly talked about here because they briefly existed here, which only played during the 04-05 season. We're folding here. Calgary Crush were undefeated in the inaugural ABA season, playing in the 9-team Pacific Northwest Division there. The team announced on November 29, 2015, that the club would sit out for the 15-16 season, citing lack of funding here. Well, it's been 5 years later, and we haven't heard anything about the Crush coming back, so that's why I'm talking about them right now here. And then when they show the season-by-season record here, I think they had a demonstration before they officially were in the league here, because in the season before here, they played 4 games. They were 0-4 here, but in the 12-13 season there, they were 12-0, but they didn't play in the playoffs here. And then 13-14, they were 8-4, and they did not qualify. And then 14-15, they were 6-4, but did not qualify for the playoffs. So in the 3 seasons, they were 26-8 here. On the Wikipedia page here, it definitely lists the roster, and it was the roster as of March 2013 here, and definitely recognize some names here that played for the SAIT Trojans, including Keenan Milburn. I definitely remember him playing for the SAIT Trojans. Definitely was big at 3-pointers for the Trojans here, and as I worked at the games, I definitely talked with his father a few times there. And then there was a Jermaine Campbell. I think I remember he also played for the Trojans as well there. And that's definitely was a roster on the Wikipedia page there. And then Eddie Richardson was the coach who actually played for the Trojans as well here. So if we look at the ABA season here, I know that they also played some games in 11-12 there. And they were 0-4 there, but then that's before they were officially in the league here. I mean, some of these independent basketball leagues here, there's like many different teams. It seems very complicated where you have like a bigger league and many different teams there. They're a touring team here. That's what I also found out when I talked about the the 88s as well here, and then the Outlaws were just a Canadian basketball league there that was semi-professional here. But I'm going to still say that when it comes to basketball in Calgary here, I'm going to say the culture isn't quite there when it comes to what I've already mentioned in my other videos here, that I don't think the culture's there. I mean, there's more of an influence in Eastern Canada because of the Toronto Raptors there, and definitely have had a lot more success here. But I know that also scouting around about the Calgary Crush here, I know another player that played for the Calgary Crush that I found that also played for the Trojans was Jamie McLeod there. So there at least I have some players about who played for the Crush here, and some seasons here. But I definitely briefly know they existed here, that they played their games at SAIT there. But that is the last basketball team that Calgary has had on a semi-professional level here, and I'm just not too sure if there's ever going to be any more basketball team here. I mean, if, let's say for example, if Calgary was hypothetically going to try to get an NBA team there, I mean, it'd definitely be tough to convince the league here, even if you had a owner with deep pockets here. But I just don't think the culture's there. Also in the description, I'll share a couple of stories about talking about the Crush here and trying to get a foothold in the Calgary market here. But as I said, this is definitely a much shorter episode here because talk about two more basketball teams that briefly existed here. But I mean, do you have any memories of the Drillers or Crush here? All I have is I'm aware that they existed. The Drillers, it's like I barely knew them. They were gone. And then the Crush here, I definitely knew a little more about them from my SAIT connections here. But I think as a sports fan myself here, I definitely have a saturation point here. I mean, obviously I love my hockey and football here, and throw in some lacrosse, where I talk about all the major Calgary teams here. But I mean, I was into the college level there when I was going to SAIT and work at the games there, and I was an overall fan where I loved all the court games and then the hockey games as well there. So, but basketball, I just say in general, it's not a big draw in Calgary, and I just say the culture is not there. But what do you think of this episode here? I know it's a quicker one, not as much relics to share here other than some logos. At least I have logos and some players that I know that played for the SAIT Trojans, actually played for the Crush here. The Crush kind of was also another team to kind of leverage your way to get into the maybe some attention in the collegiate market here and maybe go advance here. I don't have any other players that I know that played ultimately went to the show. So that's all I have here. So as I say here, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, home of the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, and formerly the Drillers and Crush here. If I mostly talk Calgary sports here, and this series here I've been talking about Calgary sports teams from the past year, and definitely have a lot more episodes to come here. But I also do personal vlogs, attempt at comedy, and I also do share my experience I'm on the road at a sport event here. So if it all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, do follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey. You know what you need to do, just to make sure you hit like, subscribe. I also have my other social media links down in the description below there for any other ways to find out what I plan to do on my channel here, or in the case of this Remember the Calgary series here. Share a logo I talk about. I plan this is what I'm going to be making a video on soon, and that's what I'm doing right now, and eventually, I'm going to edit and render it here. So for episode number 7, the next teams, because this will be another shorter video where I'll talk about a couple teams from the past year. In episode 7, we'll leave the court here and go back on the baseball diamond here. Actually, we'll talk about the Cardinals and Expos here. Yes, Calgary actually served as a development for then the St. Louis Cardinals and the Montreal Expos here, and those were the two teams that the Calgary had. This was just before my time here, before the biggest baseball team that I think Calgary's had that I purposely put towards the end of the series with the Calgary Cannons here. So look forward to that in episode 7 here. I'm going to say, depending on, schedule, and of course now that the Stanley Cup playoffs is going on here, it also depends on, other videos I want to make here. Sometimes I want to try to pace it out where I make an episode every other week here, but the way things have played out here, I've only been able to make a couple episodes at once here, and then release it out here, but just stay tuned to my other social media links when I plan to talk about the Cardinals and Expos here. And definitely when I was doing some early research on teams I want to talk about here, there's a couple players that spent some time with those teams that did make it to the show and had pretty good Major League Baseball careers here. So that'd be something to look forward to here. But when it comes to basketball in this series here, this is it for basketball here, because I've already talked about the Outlaws that we briefly had. And then I definitely talked about AH, which I say is the closest team that Calgary had to the NBA here. And if you look in that episode there, I had some players that made it to the NBA, either as a player or a coach here. And then the Drillers and Crush, which I'm going to say, the Drillers, it felt like I barely blinked. They were gone. The Crush, I mean, definitely had some interest, but definitely didn't stick around, and I don't think they're going to come back here, and it's another relic in Calgary sports history here. So, as I say here, I'll see you in the next video, whichever video you like to watch here, but, it's at least exciting that on my other sports that there is some more sports coming back here that we'll be talking about games and stories that actually are happening here. But this has definitely been a fun project to look at Calgary sports history and put it out here and see if anyone else, remembers these teams, or maybe sharing stories about I was on the team or went to games or this happened. You never know. So as I say, I'll see you then.